What is phonetics? When we talk about phonetics, we refer to the general study of the characteristics of speech sounds. What do we mean by IPA? It is an established analytic framework for the study of pitch segments. Voiced sounds are produced when the vocal folds are drawn together. The air from the lungs repeatedly pushes them apart as it passes through, creating a vibration effect. To feel it, you can place a fingertip on the top of your Adam's apple and produce the sound Z or V. You should be able to feel some vibration. In the case of voiceless sounds, they are produced when the vocal folds are spread apart. The air from the lungs passes between them unimpeded. If you produce the sounds S or F, there should be no vibration. The place of articulation is the location inside the mouth at which the constriction takes place. This means that, in order to produce sound, most consonants use the tongue and other parts of the mouth to constrict the shape of the oral cavity through which the air passes. Taking into account the place of articulation, consonants can be described as bilabial, labiodental, dental, alveolar, palatal, velar, or glottal. To produce bilabial consonants, we use both lips together. For instance, in P like in pat, B like in bat, M like in mat. In the case of labiodentals, they are made using the upper teeth with the lower lip. For instance, F as in fat or V as in vowel. In order to produce dental consonants, we use the tongue tip behind the upper teeth or between the teeth. For instance, in th as in thin or th as in then. Alveolar sounds are produced by putting the front part of the tongue on the alveolar ridge, that is, the rough area behind and above the upper teeth. For instance, T like in top or S as in sit. Palatal consonants are produced in the middle of the mouth, involving the tongue and the palate. For instance, sh as in shop and ch as in chop. Velars are the sounds produced toward the back of the mouth. That is, the back of the tongue is on the velum or soft palate. For instance, k as in cat or g as in gun. In order to produce glottal sounds, we use the glottis, which is the open space between the vocal folds. For instance, as in hat.
Manner of articulation in second language learning is important because pronunciation doesn't come as naturally as when learning our first language. It is important to know how sounds are made so that you can pronounce sounds correctly and speak more clearly. The manner of articulation is the way the airstream is affected as it flows from the lungs and out of the mouth and nose. In this session, we will talk about manner of articulation or how we make sounds. There are 6 different ways or manner of articulation. They are fricatives, affricatives, nasal, liquids, glides, and stop. Fricatives. They are produced when we almost block the airflow and force through a narrow gap, creating expressions. We have in initial sounds, for example, for, sun, hello. We have in final sounds, for example, half, has, and have. Affricatives. There is a combination of a brief stopping of the airflow with release through a narrow gap. We have in initial sounds just, cheap. We have in final sounds, for example, catch and badge. Nasal. They are produced when the balloon is lowered, allowing air to flow the nose. We close our palate. We have in initial sounds, for example, moon, nap. Liquids. They are formed by letting the air flow around sides of the tongue as the tip touches near the alveolar bridge. In initial sounds, for example, red, light. And we have final sounds, for example, dear, feel. Lights. They are produced when the tongue in motion to or from the position of a vowel. So we move our mouth constantly from articulation to a vowel sound. Stops. It is produced by blocking the airflow briefly and letting it go abruptly. Glottal stop. It is produced when the space between the vocal folds, the glottis, is closed completely, very briefly, then released. Flap. This sound is produced by the tongue tip, tapping the alveolar ridge briefly.
Vowels are typically voiced. They are articulated through the closure or obstruction in the vocal tract. In order to describe vowel sounds, we consider the way in which the tongue influences the shape through which the airflow must pass. To talk about the place of articulation, we think of the space inside the mouth as having a front versus a back and a high versus a low area. A diphthong consists of a combination of two vowel sounds, which are produced when our vocal organs move from one vocalic position to another. For instance, from A to E, when we produce the sound I, as in high or by. The end.